Book 1, Part 2 of Ovid's Metamorphoses. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Metamorphoses by Publius Ovidius Naso. Translated by Brooks Moore. Book 1, Part 2. And now his thunderbolts would Jove wide scatter, but he feared the flames, unnumbered, sacred ether might ignite and burn the axle of the universe. And he remembered, in the scroll of fate, there is a time appointed when the earth and sea and heavens shall melt, and fire destroy the universe of mighty labor wrought. Such weapons, by the skill of Cyclops forged, for different punishment he laid aside, for straightway he preferred to overwhelm the mortal race beneath deep waves and storms from ever-raining sky. And instantly he shut the north wind in Aeolian caves, and every other wind that might dispel the gathering clouds. He bade the south wind blow. The south wind flies abroad with dripping wings, concealing in the gloom his awful face. The drenching rains descends from his wet beard and hoary locks. Dark clouds are on his brows, and from his wings and garments drip the dews. His great hands press the overhanging clouds. Loudly the thunders roll, the torrents pour. Iris, the messenger of Juno, clad in many-colored raiment, upward draws the streaming moisture to renew the clouds. The standing grain is beaten to the ground, the rustic's crops are scattered in the mire, and he bewails the long year's fruitless toil. The wrath of Jove was not content with powers that emanate from heaven. He brought to aid his azure brother, lord of flowing waves, who called upon the rivers and the streams. And when they entered his impearled abode, Neptune, their ancient ruler, thus began: "A long appeal is needless. Pour ye forth in rage of power. Open up your fountains. Rush over obstacles. Let every stream pour forth in boundless floods." Thus he commands, and none dissenting, all the river gods return, and opening up their fountains, roll tumultuous to the deep, unfruitful sea. And Neptune with his trident smote the earth, which trembling with unwonted throes heaved up the sources of her waters bare, and through her open plains the rapid rivers rushed resistless, onward bearing the waving grain, the budding groves, the houses, sheep and men, and holy temples and their sacred urns. The mansions that remained, resisting vast and total ruin, deepening waves concealed and whelmed their tottering turrets in the flood and roiling gulf. And now one vast expanse, the land and sea were mingled in the waste of endless waves, a sea without a shore. One desperate man seized on the nearest hill. Another, sitting in his curved boat, plied the long oar where he was wont to plow. Another sailed above his grain, above his hidden dwelling, and another hooked a fish that sported in a leafy elm. Perchance an anchor dropped in verdant fields, or curving keels were pushed through tangled vines, and where the gracile goat enjoyed the green, unsightly seals reposed. Beneath the waves were wandering Nereids, viewing cities, groves, and houses. Dolphins darting amid the trees, meshed in the twisted branches, beat against the shaken oak trees. There the sheep, afraid, swim with the frightened wolf. The surging waves float tigers and lions. Availeth not his lightning shock the wild boar, nor avails the stag's fleet-footed speed. The wandering bird, seeking unambrageous groves and hidden vales, with wearied pinion droops into the sea. The waves increasing surge above the hills, and rising waters dash on mountain tops. Myriads by the waves are swept away, and those the waters spare, for lack of food, starvation slowly overcomes at last. A fruitful land and fair, but now submerged beneath a wilderness of rising waves. Twixt Oeta and Ionia and Phocis lies, where through the clouds Parnassus summits twain point upwards to the stars, unmeasured height, save which the rolling billows covered all. There in a small and fragile boat arrived Deucalion and the consort of his couch, prepared to worship the Corycian nymphs, the mountain deities, and Themis kind, who in that age revealed in oracles the voice of fate. And as he, no other lived so good and just, as she, no other feared the gods. When Jupiter beheld the globe in ruin covered, swept with wasting waves, and when he saw one man of myriads left, one helpless woman left of myriads lone, both innocent and worshipping the gods, he scattered all the clouds. He blew away the great storms by the cold north wind. Once more the earth appeared to heaven, and the skies appeared to earth. The fury of the main abated, for the ocean ruler laid his trident down, and he pacified the waters, and called on azure Triton. Triton rose above the waving seas, his shoulders mailed in purple shells. He bade the Triton blow in a sounding shell, the wandering streams and rivers to recall with signal known. A hollow wreath trumpet, tapering wide and slender stemmed, the Triton took amain, and wound the pearly shell at midmost sea. Betwixt the rising and the setting suns, the wildered notes resounded shore to shore, and as it touched his lips, wet with the brine beneath his dripping beard, sounded retreat, and all the waters of the land and sea obeyed. Their fountains heard and ceased to flow, their waters subsided, hidden hills uprose, emerged the shores of ocean, channels filled with flowing streams, the soil appeared, the land increased its surface as the waves decreased, and after length of days the trees put forth, with ooze on bending boughs, their naked tops. And all the wasted globe was now restored. But as he viewed the vast and silent world, Deucalion wept, and thus to Pyrrha spoke: O sister, wife, alone of women left, my kindred in descent and origin, dearest companion of my marriage bed, doubly endeared by deepening dangers born, of all the dawn and eve behold of earth, but you and I are left, for the deep sea has kept the rest. And what prevents the tide from overwhelming us? Remaining clouds affright us. How could you endure your fears if you alone were rescued by this fate, and who would then console your bitter grief? Oh, be assured, if you were buried in the waves, that I would follow you and be with you. Oh, would that by my father's art I might restore the people, and inspire this clay to take the form of man. Alas, the gods decreed, and only we are living. Thus Deucalion's plaint to Pyrrha, and they wept. And after he had spoken, they resolved to ask the aid of sacred oracles, and so they hastened to Cephisian waves, which rolled a turbid flood to channels known. Thence, when their robes and brows were sprinkled well, they turned their footsteps to the goddess's fane. Its gables were befouled with reeking moss, and on its altars every fire was cold. But when the twain had reached the temple steps, they fell upon the earth, inspired with awe, and kissed the cold stone with their trembling lips, and said, If righteous prayers appease the gods, and if the wrath of high celestial powers may thus be turned, declare, O Themis, whence and what the art may raise humanity. O gentle goddess, help the dying world. Moved by their supplications, she replied, Depart from me, and veil your brows, ungird your robes, and cast behind you as you go the bones of your great mother. Long they stood in dumb amazement. Pyrrha, first of voice, refused the mandate, and with trembling lips implored the goddess to forgive. She feared to violate her mother's bones and vex her sacred spirit. Often pondered they the words involved in such obscurity, repeating oft, and thus Deucalion to Epimetheus' daughter uttered speech of soothing import. Oracles are just, and urge not evil deeds, or naught avails the skill of thought. Our mother is the earth, and I may judge the stones of earth are bones that we should cast behind us as we go. And although Pyrrha by his words was moved, she hesitated to comply. Both amazed doubted the purpose of the oracle, but deemed no harm to come of trial. They, descending from the temple, veiled their heads and loosed their robes, threw some stones behind them. It was much beyond belief, were not receding ages witness, hard and rigid stones assumed